Have you ever been stopped in your tracks after a storm, just staring at a rainbow? It's got to be one of nature's most beautiful shows. And while it feels like total magic, it's actually just some really cool physics at play. So, how does it all work? Right. That's the big question, isn't it? How do two of the most ordinary things on Earth, sunlight and water, team up to create something so extraordinary? Well, the answer is somehow both simpler and way more amazing than you might think. To really get the whole rainbow, we first need to zoom in. I mean, way in. We're going to follow the incredible journey of just one single ray of sunlight as it collides with one tiny little raindrop. So let's set the stage. The entire spectacle kicks off with just these two main characters. You've got a beam of what looks like plain old white sunlight on one side, and on the other, you have one of millions of tiny, almost perfectly round water droplets just hanging in the air after it rains. Okay, so the first thing that happens is this process called refraction. Think about it. The light ray is zipping through the air and then, bam, it hits the much denser water of the raindrop. It's forced to slow down, and when it does, it bends. This first little bend is absolutely critical for what comes next. But this is where it gets really cool. As that light bends, something else is going on. See, that white sunlight is secretly a bundle of all the colors of the rainbow all packed together. This bending action, which we call dispersion, basically pries those colors apart and forces them to separate. The magic is starting to happen. So now you've got these separated colors traveling through the raindrop. They make it all the way to the back, hit that inner surface, and bounce right off, kind of like a tennis ball hitting a wall. That's reflection, and it's what sends those beautiful colors back towards the front of the drop, right back towards us. So let's just quickly recap that whole trip. The light ray enters the drop and bends. That bend splits the white light into a whole spectrum of colors. Those colors bounce off the back, and then finally, as the light leaves the drop, it bends one last time. It's this whole four-step dance that lets the colors escape and reach our eyes. If you've ever played with a glass prism and seen it make a little rainbow on the wall, well, you've seen this exact thing happen. And what's wild is that every single raindrop hanging in the air is acting like a tiny, perfect, natural prism. And the result of all this is that familiar spectrum of colors we all learned as kids. But have you ever noticed they're always in the exact same order? That is no accident. Red light actually bends the least, so it's always on the top, on that outer part of the arc. Violet light bends the most, so it's always on the bottom, on the inside, every single time. Okay, so that's the science inside one single tiny raindrop. But a rainbow isn't just a tiny speck of color, right? So how do we get from this one little microscopic light show to that huge, magnificent arc that stretches across the entire sky? Well, here it is, the big reveal. That incredible journey we just followed, it's not happening in just one drop. It's happening at the exact same moment, in perfect sync across millions and millions of individual raindrops all hanging there in the air, basically forming a giant invisible movie screen. And here's the most important piece of the puzzle. A rainbow isn't an object. You can't touch it, you can't fly to the end of it. It's an optical illusion that only exists from your specific point of view. You see it because your eyes are in the perfect spot to catch the light exiting all those millions of raindrops at a very precise angle. It's 42 degrees to be exact, to form that perfect, colorful arc. So, now that you know the science, you can actually use it. Spotting a rainbow isn't just about getting lucky. It's about knowing exactly where and when to look. So here's your simple guide to go find one for yourself. There are really just 3 simple rules. First, and this is the most important one, the sun has to be directly at your back. Second, you need a curtain of water droplets in front of you. That could be rain, of course, but also mist from a waterfall or even just the spray from a garden hose. And third, it works best when the sun is low in the sky, so think early morning or late afternoon. If you can line up all 3 of those things, you are in the perfect spot. And that brings us to one last, just fascinating thought. Since the rainbow you see is made of light from raindrops reaching your eyes at that perfect angle, the person standing right next to you, well, they're seeing a completely different rainbow, made from a completely different set of raindrops. It's your own personal, unique light show, created just for you in that one moment. So the next time you see one, just remember that what you're witnessing is something no one else in the entire world will ever see in exactly the same way. How cool is that?
When you look at the entire animal kingdom, it's pretty overwhelming, right? But what if I told you there's one simple line that splits almost every single creature into two giant competing teams? Well, today, we're going to figure out exactly what that line is and why it matters a whole lot more than you might think. All right, so let's start with a bit of a puzzle. I want you to picture a blue whale. I mean, the biggest animal that has ever lived, okay? Now picture a tiny little hummingbird, so small you might mistake it for a bug. And then, well, there's you. So what on earth could all three of you possibly have in common? I know, it sounds impossible, right? But the answer? Well, it unlocks one of the biggest secrets of the animal kingdom.
So what is it? The answer is something you've got inside you right this very second. It's your backbone. Yep, all three of you, the whale, the hummingbird, and you, belong to the first great division of animal life, the vertebrates, or as I like to call them, team backbone. So what exactly is a vertebrate? Well, it all boils down to one single feature: having a backbone, also known as a spinal column, right there inside your body. It's basically this internal stack of bones that acts like the central pillar holding up the whole structure from the inside out. And this internal setup, it has a scientific name, of course. It's called an endoskeleton. That endo part just means within. So it's a skeleton on the inside. And honestly, it's a brilliant design. It gives all this amazing support, but also lets an animal grow and move with some incredible flexibility. And let me tell you, Team Backbone is an incredibly diverse crew. We're talking every fish in the sea, every frog hopping around a pond, every snake, bird, and every mammal on the planet. From a little mouse all the way up to a giant elephant. If it's got a spine, it's on this team. And that, of course, includes us. Okay, so we've got Team Backbone covered. But what about everybody else? Well, this brings us to the other side of that great divide, to the massive, sprawling world of the invertebrates. And here's the twist, folks. This group is way, way bigger than you could possibly imagine. Just look at this number. 95%. Seriously, that means for every single vertebrate animal out there, like us, there are about 19 animals without a backbone. So invertebrates aren't just another group. No way. They are the overwhelming, absolute majority of animal life on Earth. It's a mind-bending stat, really. The definition, then, is about as simple as it gets. An invertebrate is just any animal that does not have a backbone. That's it. No internal skeleton holding them up from the inside. And the variety in this group, it's absolutely off the charts. I mean, think about every insect that's ever buzzed by your ear, every spider you've seen spinning a web, every snail, every octopus with its crazy alien-like intelligence. All of them, from squishy jellyfish to wriggly earthworms, they're all part of this massive, spineless family. So wait a minute. If there's no skeleton on the inside, how do they, hold themselves together? Well, a whole lot of them evolved this brilliant solution, an exoskeleton. Remember, endo meant within, while exo means outside. So it's a hard, external skeleton. It's literally a built-in suit of armor that gives them structure and protection. Okay, so we've met Team Backbone and the massive Team No Backbone. Now, let's put them side by side, head to head, and really break down the key differences that set them apart. Okay, this pretty much lays it all out perfectly. The number one difference, the big one, is the backbone. Vertebrates have one, invertebrates don't. Simple as that. And that directly leads to the skeleton type, right? We've got the internal endoskeleton for us vertebrates versus the external exoskeleton, or sometimes no skeleton at all, for the invertebrates. And because of that fundamental structural difference, you generally see more complex body systems like advanced nervous and circulatory systems in vertebrates. So really, when you strip everything else away, it all comes back to that one single question: does it have a backbone? That one evolutionary split is the fundamental line in the sand. It's what divides the entire animal kingdom in two. But so what? Why does this simple divide matter so much? Well, because it forces us to ask a really interesting and kind of surprising question about who's really running the show here on planet Earth. I mean, think about it. Our attention is almost always on the vertebrates. They're the big, charismatic animals. The lions and the whales and the eagles. They often seem like they're at the top of the food chain. But in the grand scheme of things, in the game of sheer numbers, they are completely and utterly outnumbered. When it comes to population, this planet belongs to the invertebrates.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought. Yeah, we might have the backbones, but they have the numbers. They are in every single ecosystem, influencing everything. So, with no backbone at all, could it be that the invertebrates are the true rulers of the planet? Maybe, just maybe, it's the ones without a spine who are really in charge.
Have you ever just stopped and watched an ant carrying a leaf, like 10 times its own size, and thought, how is that even possible? Or maybe you've poked a crab's shell and felt how ridiculously hard it is. Well, it turns out the secret to all that strength and toughness, it's not magic. It's actually a wild design choice. Today, we're going to get into the secret armor of the animal kingdom.
And, this isn't just a fun little fact. This is a total masterclass in biological engineering. See, while we humans and other animals with backbones build our bodies around an internal frame, a huge, and I mean hugely successful group of animals took a completely different path. Get this, they wear their skeletons on the outside. Yep, like a custom-fitted suit of armor. And this one single design choice changes everything about how they live, how they move, and how they grow. So what exactly is this outside skeleton, and how in the world does it work? Okay, let's break it down and figure out what an exoskeleton really is. It's a word you've probably heard before, but what does it actually mean? And what makes it such a game changer in the story of evolution? So at its simplest, it's a hard outer covering. But honestly, it is so much more than just a shell. It's the animal's support structure, it's a protective shield, and it's where all the muscles attach to make movement happen. It's all of that wrapped up into one super efficient external package. The name itself actually gives us a massive clue. Exo is just Greek for outside. And well, skeleton is a supporting framework. So you put it together and you literally get an outside framework. So simple, right? And yet, this simple idea led to one of the most successful body plans in the entire animal kingdom. It's incredible. All right, so who exactly is in this outside-in skeleton club? The variety of animals is just staggering, and it includes some of the most common creatures you see every single day. We are talking about everything from crabs and lobsters patrolling the ocean floor, all the way to the ants, spiders, and grasshoppers in your own backyard. All of these animals belong to a huge, incredibly successful group called arthropods. And what defines them? They all have jointed legs and, of course, that signature hard outer shell. But here's a cool detail. Not all exoskeletons are made of the same stuff. Most insects have a shell made of a tough, lightweight material called chitin. It's really strong, but it's also flexible. But then you have your crustaceans, your crabs and lobsters. They take things to the next level. They reinforce that chitin with calcium, which is the same stuff that makes our bones and seashells so hard. This makes their armor even tougher and more rigid. So what are all the perks of having this external armor? It's not just for defense, not by a long shot. The exoskeleton is a multifunctional tool that gives them a whole range of benefits, almost like a set of built-in superpowers. For starters, it's a rigid shield against predators and just general bumps and bruises. It also acts as the entire skeleton, giving the animal its shape and structure. It's the anchor point for all their muscles, which lets them make really precise, powerful movements. And this is a huge one for insects on land. It has a waxy, waterproof layer that literally stops them from drying out. It's a helmet, a skeleton, and a raincoat, all rolled into one. Okay, but this brings us to the big question, right? The major plot twist. If you live inside a hard box that can't stretch, what do you do when you start getting too big for it? It's not like you can just go out and buy the next size up. The solution is, well, it's pretty dramatic and honestly pretty dangerous. It's a total fresh start, a complete costume change, and it's called molting. This is molting. In order to grow, the animal has to shed its entire skeleton. The old armor literally splits open and the animal has to wriggle out, leaving behind a perfect empty copy of itself. For a short, terrifying amount of time, it's completely soft and vulnerable. It has to quickly puff up its body to a bigger size before its new, larger exoskeleton hardens around it. It is an incredibly risky thing to do, but it's absolutely necessary for them to grow. Thinking about this whole process, it really makes you stop and think about our own biology, doesn't it? How does this whole external armor system stack up against the internal framework that we've got going on? So what we have here are two fundamentally different ways to build a body. You've got the exoskeleton, that external suit of armor that offers amazing protection, but forces you into the dangerous gamble of molting every time you need to grow. And then you have the endoskeleton, like ours. an internal frame that lets us grow continuously but leaves all of our important organs way more exposed. It's not really about which one is better, it's just an amazing example of the incredible, different solutions evolution can come up with. It really makes you wonder, what other ingenious designs are out there in nature, just waiting for us to discover?